I think we got to start off with this Tennessee-Ohio State game, right?
Yeah.
This is the one, and myself included, I was looking forward to this one the most. I thought this would be the best overall matchup team-wise, not just who was on the roster, but the way that Tennessee was structured. You see all the fans, like the invasion was real. That turned into a retreat real quick, if we're going to be honest. But the invasion was real with all the Tennessee fans that came up there. David, I'm gonna start with you here. How shocked were you with the way that Tennessee came out on defense? Like, if you'd have told me that Tennessee would have scored 10 points in the game, I could see that offensively. We've seen Tennessee kind of stall and play it slow and play it close to the vest. But you come out and get a 21 piece with Cajun fries and a honey biscuit and a Sprite in the first quarter?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Tennessee's defense didn't hold up better against the run, especially early and really throughout the game. But not a lot of this surprised me, other than even when OSU was blowing out most of the teams during the regular season, they didn't start great. So to see them, get up 21-0, that part of it was a little bit surprising. But I kept trying to tell people, I kept trying to tell Tennessee fans in the neighborhood and people who would text me and ask me, I'm like, I feel like too many people only watched the Buckeyes play one game this year, and that was against Michigan, and they think they're trash. And I'm just telling you, man, I've watched them too much in the history of their program, and I've watched them in every single game they played this year. There are playmakers on every side of the ball. I saw the game plan that Chip Kelly called against Penn State. I think that's who they really are, not the game plan they called against Michigan. I said, I think they're going to have some success, and they're going to get the ball out wide to their playmakers. Now, they do a better job than anyone in the country. Maybe you can put Oregon, maybe even Texas up there, but of throwing to set up the run. And boy, did you see that yesterday. And if there was ever a time for Travion Henderson really to have one of his best games, this was a time to do it. And then I think you saw what an important factor Dylan Sampson is for Tennessee. When you take him out of the football game, man, Tennessee on offense, like they're not the same team.
Yeah, and Blaine, I saw a lot of people on social media, they were like, man, Dylan Sampson being out, that cost Tennessee the game. Dylan Sampson is a hell of a back. He's an NFL back, but he doesn't play defense. And I want to make sure, as much as, we're going to talk about Tennessee not playing well, I do give credit to Ohio State.
Yes.
Because, again, we talk about the game plan, David. That's one of the main things we talked about this week was your game plan going into Michigan was an emotional one.
Yes.
Your game plan coming into this game was an efficient one. You played to your strengths. Even going back to the first play, we talked about it all week, spitting the ball out in space. Tennessee's really good in the front seven. You have to soften them in the middle by hurting them wide, laterally, early. And that's the first pass, I think, was to Jeremiah Smith, right, on the outside. And then what did you see? Mesh, crossers, and Will Howard, I questioned. And again, they were blowing him out so bad. It wasn't like it was a tie game in the fourth quarter and he had to fit one in. But Will Howard made all the throws. Pretty much made every single throw that he had to. The interception in the back of the end zone by the white boy safety that Tennessee had, just
not
a hell of a play.
Yeah,
that's just
PI
a hell of a play. Yeah, it could have been called a PI too. But at the end of the day, and Blaine, you picked Ohio State. I want to give you your credit. You got Ohio State win the national championship. We asked, how would Ohio State bounce back from that Michigan game, not only from a player standpoint, not only from a fan standpoint, but from a game plan standpoint. And I tell you what, it must be an amazing feeling in a moment like this when a bunch of fans from another team try to overwhelm your stadium. They get 30,000 people in there, and then you just mop their ass from the first quarter on. You talk about leaving. You talk about this is why I don't go to games like this if my team is playing. It would have ruined – the ride back would have been awful. We wouldn't even have stayed that night. I'd have just got in the car and drove back just so I could wake up my house. This is why I don't do it. This is why I won't do it. But I tell you what, I kind of feel happy for Ohio State fans. And Ryan Day, how many? I'd stop in every breakfast restaurant in Columbus this morning if I'm Ryan Day. I wouldn't even get something at half the places. I would just walk in and just let everybody know, hey, what's up?
I wouldn't be surprised if somehow Ryan Day just you got peeped into this show and just popped up and started talking about how great the
we're a tough team. Well, I'm gonna kick Lou Holt's ass.
It's a couple things here. One, what Cone said, if you just watch the rivalry games are weird. All right, they are. Trust me. I've watched an Auburn team who had no business being on the same field against Alabama, make Alabama go 100, basically 95 yards on the last drive to go win the game. Rivalry games are weird. I don't really put too much into that. And two, it's just we've created this monster. All right, it seems like everybody in college football was against Ohio State. Everybody, right? Tennessee fans taking over. Ryan Day can't win the big game. Will Howard this, Will Howard that. So you've made something where a team with a $20 million roster, probably more than that, you've now created a us versus the world mentality. All right. And if you ever want to get a team together, that's how you do that. Am I surprised about how bad Ohio State beat Tennessee? For sure. I didn't think it was going to be that bad. But I'm not surprised to see how good this Ohio State team is when they actually play to their strengths. Ohio State, from a receiver standpoint, probably has the best room in the country.
Oh, it's stupid. The fact that Jeremiah Smith is a freshman is stupid. Jeremiah was put together in a lab.
Can go start in any NFL team right now, and he's 14 years old. NFL receiver. You have two true running backs in the backfield that you are going to watch play on Sundays. The question was, Will Howard, is he good enough? And a lot of it has to do with Chip Kelly tailoring the offense to Will Howard's strengths. Short passes early. You substitute the short passes to help with the run game. Right? If Ohio State knows their identity, and look, you can say what you want about Ryan Day, but damn it, he's been here before. All right, he knows what it takes to win these games. Josh Heupel doesn't. When's the last time Tennessee's been anything in the postseason that matters? All right, the real question is, was the moment too big for Tennessee? You say it about SMU. You could say it about Indiana. Was Tennessee ready?
I just don't think they were as good.
Yeah, well, I mean, after watching that, like, Cone, like, I'm sitting there watching that game last night, me and Blaine are, and this was the sequence for Ohio State on offense. Starting out, right, I'll put it in thirds. You know, swing pass wide, now screen wide, short passing game, intermediate run game, whether that's zone or whether that's gap scheme. Then they'd get you down and they'd say, Jeremiah Smith, go deep. That's what they say, Jeremiah Smith, go deep. Because what happens, people think that just the run brings DBs down. No, when I'm sitting here, and Tennessee plays a lot of man, right? But you can play man from different depths and different leverages. When you're throwing those short passes, when you're getting Jeremiah Smith on a crosser, and it's taking my safety forever to tackle him, and you're getting 7 to 10 yards a pop, what do I have to do as a DB? I've got to come down, whether that's coming down to press you or whether that's coming down to limit the amount of space underneath me. That's where they were getting. That was a masterclass put on by Chip Kelly. What he did to Tim Banks last night was an absolute masterclass. It was Oppenheimer versus me in a math class. That's what it looked like last night. I'm choked to death. Go ahead.
Hey, do I need to come over there? There's only a couple halves of football this season. Now I'm going to choke to death. That have really just blown me away in terms of like being near perfect. When we watched Alabama play Georgia in the first half, when we were at Innisfree, that was one of those halves of football. And then yesterday too, and watching Chip Kelly and Will Howard attack every single level of this defense. You're talking about the now screens and the tunnel screens and the quick routes and stuff. Well, that helps set up the go routes, which they hit multiple of those for touchdowns. But then the intermediate passing game too. How many times did they run sail to the field against zone coverage? Crushed them. Huge first downs. But then on the flip side of that too, when you look at Tennessee's offense, at least you ran Nico. They ran Nico a bunch. We were asking, how much quarterback power are we going to get? How much rollout are we going to get? At least you ran him, and you still rushed for 152 without one of the best players in the SEC and Dylan Sampson. So at least you had that going for you. But, I mean, Blaine, you and I were talking about how close to the line of scrimmage does Caleb Downs play. We were talking about it all week, and you saw the Buckeyes come out. You pretty much have to play in your nickel package against Tennessee with the wide splits like that. Yeah. And what were they doing? Nickel package, Caleb down near the line of scrimmage, man. So effective.
Absolutely ate him.
Look, Ohio State ran against basically a light box the entire game.
Yeah.
The entire game, and dared Tennessee to run it. And Ohio State not only won this game up front on both sides of the ball, they won it everywhere you looked at, right? And if you do that, if Will Howard plays like this, guys, they're going to win. They have like that. That's the team I watched, and I was like, that's the Ohio State I've been expecting to see. I think they played their best game.
Well, I think they did too. But I do think Texas could be a problem.
Why?
I do think Texas could, because I think Texas's defensive front seven can play with an even box and slow down this run game and make Will Howard throw it to beat him. The question to me for Texas is, can they allow Quinn Ewers to get enough time to get the ball out?
Yeah.
That's because he can't run like Nico. He can't do the things that Nico did yesterday. That was the only hope they had. Guys, and I want to get to Tennessee and then to the chat. I know it's buzzing in the chat. We're going to get there. But listen to these numbers just quickly. Will Howard yesterday, 24 of 29 for 311, 2 touchdowns, and that incredible pick. Rushing, Travion Henderson, 10 carries for 80 yards. That's 8 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Will Howard had 40 yards on 5 carries. Quinshon Judkins had 34 yards on 10 carries and 2 touchdowns. If Will Howard is coming out and doing that, Ohio State is not losing. They're not losing. Their roster's too good. We talked about complementary football, right? Offense, defense, special teams. Is Oregon the most complete team in college football? That was one of the most complete and thorough games that you will see from a college football team at this level in this moment. That's why Ohio State yesterday was by far and away the most impressive team of the first round. But David, I want to throw this question to you and Blaine too, and then we'll get in the chat. If you're a Tennessee fan, how are you feeling this morning about the future with Nico Iamaleava and the way that this team – you can't come out in pregame warm-ups with your shirt off and get beat to death like that. Like, you can't come out here and Josh Heupel was hype and the walking through, it's going to be our day, it's going to be our day. How do you come out and you look like a fake gangster? That's what you look like. You look like a wankster, as it was called when I was growing up. So if I'm a Tennessee fan, look, you went 10-3. You know, you beat Alabama, had some ups, had some downs. But Nico going forward, David, I'm going to start with you, former quarterback. How should you feel if you're a Tennessee fan about Nico this morning?
Man, it's a great question. I was thinking about this last night because the grand sum of Tennessee fans' ambition isn't just to win 10 games. And yeah, you beat Alabama and that's great, but then you lost to Georgia and you made a playoff when it's tripled in size, but you got bounced in the first round. Like, they want to get back to what 1998 was. So to me, they have to do two things. One, go get as many great players from the transfer portal like everyone else is trying to do, especially playmakers on the outside for Nico. But then as far as your quarterback goes, it's going to be about how does he develop. And keep in mind, you still won 10 games this year with a freshman quarterback. I think Nico is going to develop. But the floor for me would be, is he DJ Uiagalelei? Throw for several thousand yards a season, over 20 touchdowns, run the ball pretty well in some games, but there's just a certain ceiling. Or is this kid Jaden Daniels? Remember, we watched Jaden Daniels for several seasons at Arizona State, had some talent, but he became the Heisman Trophy winner with 3,800 passing yards and 1,100 rushing yards. Does Nico take that kind of step where we say, wow, that's what we thought the potential was when he got to be an upperclassman?
Yeah, and Blaine, I want to throw this comp at you real quick. Or does he just become like Justin Herbert? Really good prospect, long guy, big arm. A lot of pros like him, wins a lot of games, but really doesn't win anything.
God, that's tough. One, I mean, from the Jaden Daniels comp, I think he's going to need a lot of help at receiver. I mean, for Jaden Daniels, you walked in with Malik Neighbors, you had absolute dogs running around.
And he played like 6 years too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, you lose Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. I mean, you have good receivers, but you don't have great receivers. And Ohio State was locking them up for mostly the entire game. Man, I think Nico's going to be fine. The only thing I really worry about, are you going to have a defense that's good again? Yeah, I mean, right now you checked all the boxes from a Tennessee fan standpoint to actually have a run in this playoff. I just think you ran into a $20 million roster, and that show you're great at running the ball, you're great at stopping the run, you're experienced in the back end, you're experienced up front. You have one of the best running backs in college football who did get hurt. So I think Nico will be fine. I think Nico's going to be a lot better player than DJU. I thought DJU had a lot better talent around him than what Nico had. And I think but if you're Josh Heupel, like you can't walk into this game and get beat that bad after your fans took over 40% of the
That's
state.
what, man, that's to me.
Not only did you let your team down, I mean, you let yourself down and you let those fans down who traveled. And it's not like you have to go win the game. But you can understand as a fan being on the road and at least keep it competitive. At one point, Ohio State put their backups in with 10 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They played their fourth string quarterback.
Yeah.
Like it's borderline disrespectful, and I hated the game plan from Tennessee as well on offense. I don't think Nico knew what he was looking at. He'd go through one read and just absolutely take off. And he took a shot now. I mean, broke his damn helmet.
Yeah.
That first drive. And you want to talk about setting the tone, right? Setting the tone. That's how you set the tone, where you hit a guy so hard, not only is a quarterback, that you shatter his helmet.
Well, Blaine, you know what you said, I think is spot on. We're not saying you have to go and win the game, right? That you have to go win it. Now, you can think that, right? If you're Josh Heupel, well, we have to go win this game. But, man, you get beat like that from the jump. Like, you give up 35. They gave up more points in the first 7 minutes of the first quarter than they have averaged given up per game. Like, you saved it's funny. It's two opposite ends of the spectrum. Ohio State saved the best game for pretty much their biggest moment, right? Outside of playing Michigan. Tennessee waited to the biggest moment to probably play their worst game since Arkansas, if you want to go back to it. So you got all these people that travel up. You got all this excitement, all this buildup. We're going to invade Columbus. We're going to show you what the SEC is about, this, that, and the other. And it's not like, man, they beat us on a last-second field goal, $20 million roster. That wasn't what happened. You showed up by the river, and they just instantly started drowning you. Like, you didn't even get a punch in. If I'm a Tennessee fan, and you still kind of had a little chance. Like, that first drive coming out of the second half, that's where the game was lost, right? When you didn't convert, and then Ohio State got the ball right back and took it right down the field and scored. But, man, it's just that's a tough pill to swallow if you're a Tennessee fan or you're Josh Heupel.
And if you're Josh, it's the way you come out. It has a lot to do with the coaching, right? It really does from a script standpoint. You know, it just seemed like Tennessee, not only the way they came out, but the way they came out in the second half. They seemed like they were just unprepared. They seemed like they didn't know what they were looking like. And it looked like Chip Kelly and Ryan Day they knew what Will Howard needed to do. They told him the game plan. It wasn't too complicated. We have better players, and it's simple execution, and that's what they did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and quickly, I want to get to the chat. We got to move on, but it's the little things to me. How do you not put a returner back there on that last field goal before the half? What are you doing? How scared are you? Yeah. Like, how scared are you? It's like Dylan Sampson went out of the game, and everybody just lost their minds. Like, he's this dude cannot hit from 56. It's freezing cold. The wind is in his face, and you don't send a returner back there. Like, you should, and again, that doesn't mean he's going to return it for a touchdown. This may not be a kick six situation, but to me, that showed a lack of aggression because of a lack of confidence. If I'm going to get blown out, blow me out with me swinging my sword, dude. Shout out our guy, Mike Leach. It felt like Tennessee, from a coaching standpoint, just laid down too and said, well, we made it to the playoff. At least we all got to be together to get slaughtered in Columbus, us and the fans. I just thought it was a very, very soft, adjustment by the coaching staff as well, not just the defense.